none, then we'll adopt the agenda as presented. First item of business on the agenda is our financial audit report for fiscal year 25. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I just want to thank your guys' staff. Crystal, of course, does a great job helping us through this process. It is not easy. We brought a team on site, twice this year? 4 or 5 people. So all of your staff was very, very accommodating to us. Obviously, they have full-time jobs when we're not here. So when we're here, it's a lot. And we got the draft done, and Crystal spent a lot of time kind of last minute putting that together so we could be here tonight to present to you guys. So just a big thanks to her and to everybody that you guys have working for you. I'm going to give you an overview, kind of like I always do, of your financial statements, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to just interrupt me at any point. We can go over things or go more in depth. We're not going to go through every page because I don't want to bore you guys to death, but we will kind of give you the highlights. So the first thing that you have in front of you is what we refer to as our governance letter. So while we obviously work very closely with your staff, we have to report to you guys as governance at the end of the day. And so this is where we are going to disclose basically any new accounting standards that went into effect, any estimation that goes into this process. Obviously, there's always estimation. Some of the big ones that you guys have are your depreciation, so we're making an estimation for that. Some of your liabilities for your pension and your OPEB or other post-employment benefits are also a pretty big estimation that we get from actuaries. Beyond that, we have to disclose if we had any disagreements with management, and luckily we did not, so we always kind of joke about that, but it has happened. So the next thing attached to this letter is the adjusting journal entries that we make. So as a board, this is really good to look at just so you know what we are making adjustments to your financial statements. Very positive here. We only had 6 of them, and I think 3 or 4 of them at least we do every year just out of convenience for Crystal. So it's not like we came in and were really making big adjustments. Nothing really material either here that I would be concerned about. So that's very positive. Beyond that, you guys should have this bound report in front of you. Like I said, I'm not going to go through every single page, but I'll kind of give you the high-level introduction to it and the overview. The first couple pages, so pages 1 and 2, is going to be our independent auditor's report. So they changed this a few years ago to actually put our opinion very first in that. So that very first paragraph, I actually liked that change. It was good for presentation purposes. But right there, you're going to see on page 1 of that report that we think that your financial statements are materially stated. So you guys are receiving what we refer to as an unmodified opinion. So that's the best opinion that you can receive. It's a little bit confusing with the verbiage, but that is it's a clean opinion, clean audit opinion. That has not always been the case for Nissa School District. There was a couple of accounting standards that you guys had not implemented prior to our audit firm working with you, and that actually you did not have a clean audit opinion at that point. You received a qualified opinion for that. So very positive to report that we have that out of here and you guys are now receiving that clean opinion. The remainder of that is pretty boilerplate. You will also see kind of halfway down that page a change in accounting principles. So what that is a new accounting standard that we had to implement this year. Not to get into the weeds on it, but it had to do with your compensated absences, so it did increase your compensated absences liability on your financial statements. It was a lot more complicated than that, as Crystal can attest to, but that's kind of a higher overview of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board had us change the way that you were calculating those, and so now it's a little bit more realistic as far as what the actual liability is to the school district at the end of the year, and it's going to be more uniform across all governments within the state. So that's what that Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or what they refer to as GASB Statement 101 is. Okay, after the audit report, we have the management's discussion and analysis, and I sound like a broken record here, but if you're not going to read this entire thing, read these 4 or 5 pages. And so this is really put together by your staff. It's a really good overview of the entire document. It's the only place that you're going to find comparative data from the prior year to the current year, so that's really helpful. It's also a pretty condensed version, so there's going to be, it's a little bit easier to digest than looking at this full report. So those pages 4 to 7 are, again, a really good place to look. It also has a forecast for next year. So as you know, we're now halfway through your 2026 fiscal year, and so this is somewhat historic data that we're reporting on. So there is a little section in there that talks about the future, and that would be in the fiscal year that you're currently in. After that, you're gonna have your financial statements. So starting on page 8 and 9 is what we refer to as your government-wide statements. The big thing to kind of point out here is that your net position increased from the prior year by about $3.5 million. So last year it had an increase of 2.2 million, this year 3.5. So very positive increase again, and year over year you're seeing increases. So we would say that that is a very positive outlook. Beyond that, you're gonna have your governmental fund statements. Again, I'm not gonna kind of dig into the weeds of these, but just to give you on page 12, kind of an overview of your fund balances by each fund. So we show the general fund, special revenue fund, your capital projects fund, and your debt service fund condensed there, and you had again an increase in your fund balances by $3.2 million. So very positive increase, with the general fund increasing at about 187,000. So after that, you're gonna have your notes to the financial statements. So that starts on page 14. This is really where you're gonna see most of the verbiage behind a lot of these numbers. So if you wanna dig into the debt that the district has, some capital asset disclosures, the accounting principles, all that fun stuff, that's gonna be in kind of this middle section. There's really nothing new in here. Like I said, you implemented the compensated absences, so your liability did increase from what it was in the prior years. But other than that, it did not cause a new note disclosure, so there's nothing real new within these notes. In the back then, you're gonna have each of the fund statements, so you guys can get lost in that if you need some bedtime reading. But I'm not gonna kind of go through any of that. There was nothing that we would be worried about or need to point out. So if you guys turn to the very back, we're gonna have what we have our Oregon Auditor's Report, so that starts on page 57. That is gonna be what we have to report separately to the state of Oregon, and so you're gonna have, Oregon has different rules for deposit of public funds, your debt limitation that you have, budgets, so how you implement your budgets, public contracting is a big one, so that would be purchases of capital assets. So we have to report if you guys had any sort of issues there. So that's on page 57. The only two minor things that we had was a small budget violation, and only one of them this year, so that was really good. I know that's always Crystal's goal, is to not have any budget violations, so we're getting really close. There's only one there. And then you guys had adopted a supplemental budget but did not do a resolution for that. That's a very small technicality, right? It's not that big of a deal. So we do have to report that though, because there wasn't a proper resolution. I can promise you, Crystal knows that, and it's probably never gonna happen again. And then behind that, so starting on page 59, is what we refer to as our single audit. So you guys had federal money that you expended, federal money that you received from the federal government. If you have expenditures in excess of $750,000 of federal money during the year, you technically have to have a separate federal compliance audit. So that's applied to you guys for multiple years now. You guys actually had about $2.7 million of federal money that you expended during the year. And so we had to do a separate audit on those funds. Within that, what we do is we look at a couple of your bigger projects that you have, a couple of those bigger, the money that they give you. So this year we looked at your Title I, and then we also looked at your nutrition program. So we're happy to report that we did not have any findings with either one of those programs. So that was very, very positive, especially given kind of the history that the districts had. We looked through and made sure that everything was in compliance with the expenditures that you were supposed to be doing. So very positive there. The only kind of other area to point out would be starting on page 65. So that's if we have any other sort of what we refer to as findings, quote unquote, for the audit. That first one is just the fact that, and we have this every year, the fact that we help draft these financial statements. And so, like I said, Crystal provides these to us. We only made a few journal entries, but then to put this whole packet together, we actually helped draft that. I can tell you that Crystal does a very thorough review of this, and she looks through all of it, which is perfect, because when it goes to ODE, then we're not gonna have any discrepancies from her record and what we reported in this. But because we actually do put this together, we have to report that because it's technically a management function. We do not recommend any change to how you guys are doing that. The only way you could get out of this finding is if you had a separate audit firm come in and actually draft this and hand it to us, and then we would audit it. That doesn't make any sense for a district your size. It's gonna be way too costly to do that. And so we just have to say, we're a part of this function, we don't recommend any changes. The only other finding that we had to do with payables. Again, I don't think this will happen again because we had a similar finding last year. I know we kind of went in depth about what the payables were. It's a very complicated accounting principle. Really what this was then the prior year payables didn't get reversed within your guys' system, and then there was very small new payables that had to get booked this year. So when I say small, I think it was like $20,000 that we booked in this year. So the current year payables were not very much. That's a couple of the journal entries that we had. And I say that I'm sure that this is not gonna happen again because we actually had added an extra payable on our list that we were adjusting to that was not a payable, and Crystal caught it. And so she was like, that's not a payable, I'm understanding payables, right? And I'm like, you are. So we were not trying to test her, but yes, she caught that and said, no, that should not be on there. So like I said, she understands what payables are. We don't have any real concerns there whatsoever. So your financial statements are definitely not materially misstated by that adjustment that we made. That is the long and the short of it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions?
Maybe this is more of a general question. I won't lie, I have a hard time understanding the financials that we get monthly. It's like I look at that and it seems like they report cash positions of about 14 million. Am I reading those wrong?
Are you thinking the very first report that so that's just our general fund. That's
Okay.
not our special revenue fund and then I report our debt service, remember I talked about the bond, and then, and then we have our capital projects, our fund 400.
Okay.
So you have to add all those together to equal those numbers.
Okay, all right, I think that's what I was missing. This, I'm looking at it going, I thought that was just cash positions, and then this is showing everything that position is 14.7, is that right?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And that is very complicated. These first two statements are what we refer to as government-wide statements. So this is where you're gonna book all of your assets, your debt. You're not gonna have that on a general fund statement, right? When you're just looking at a monthly statement.
Right, that just those two numbers were so close.
Yes.
That I went, I must be missing something on the monthly reports, but that makes sense.
Yeah, you're doing good if you're understanding that much of it.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you
We
guys
really
for contracting with our
appreciate
firm, yes. You guys are doing a good job, so we appreciate all the help that your staff does in this process. It is not a small process, so, and to get it done on time by the end of the year and get it submitted is a big kudos to you guys, so,
Yeah, Crystal.
yes.
Thank you, and thank you, Crystal. Yep.
Thank you.
So then on Monday, we can put this on the agenda.
So it'll be on the agenda for Monday, yes.
So that gives us all time to really thoroughly digest this.
I will.
Yeah,
I know
please
how
do.
Fred's cooking it.
Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
And we will move on to item B under business, the August 2025 policy updates. And you've all thoroughly read these and digested them, correct? Any questions, comments?
He has a little fire going through.
Go ahead, I have my pen ready.
So the DBEA, I have no comments, questions on that. The IGBAB this issue is through a couple of these, but why, I guess let me ask this first. These changes, are these primarily done by OSBA?
Yeah, most of them are by
Okay, so maybe this is nitpicky, but I noticed they go in and they cross out his and her on everything. I don't like that. It's not a content issue, it's, why are we wasting our time changing something? It's, to me, it's just part of the woke agenda to get rid of his and hers designations, and I don't think, it's a small little thing, but it's just another step in the direction I don't like.
And that's exactly what they're doing, be more inclusive, because they're saying there's probably more than just two of those pronouns that couldn't come up in our policies, and so that would be all encompassing of that. And so that's why you can see, you're gonna see that change in there. And so that is why it's done.
Right.
So,
And I mean, I guess as far as me, and this is me only, I wouldn't vote for a change to get rid of he and she.
it's not gonna change the content, as you said, right?
Right.
It's to be more inclusive of who falls under that, as we know, like I said, that.
Everybody falls under he or she.
So just telling you kind of what the guidance is, then, like I said, if the board wants to keep it that way and not make it inclusive like the OSBA does, that's totally fine.
Right, and there's lawful changes in, there's things, changes that are in here that I might not agree with, but the law says you must, so that's what we do. But to me, this isn't you must, so why change it if it's not a must? My thoughts on that.
Any other comment to that? Like, I mean, it's,
I-
I understand why they're doing it, they're trying to make it totally inclusive. It's not that I approve of it or condone it, I just understand why. And we see it in everything.
Well, and I think to add to what he's saying, I agree with what he's saying, but I think top of it is just a waste of time. I mean, we had to sit here and read this thing to find out that's what it is. That's what's getting, I think, why it's putting here, if this is all we're changing.
There's more changes than just that, but,
Well, I agree with that, what I'm talking about.
right, I don't have an issue with any of the content.
okay.
Represent it.
Right.
So are you, I mean, if we look at IGB, AB, are you recommending to change, revert that back to not approve the recommendation on the his and hers on those and he and she? The place of birth is required in there, that's something that we want to
Right.
take off of that. But if- we're gonna bring this up on Monday, so we need to have a document that is, you guys feel good on voting for, and so if you have comments and you guys are like, yes, this is what we'd like to refer back to, we wanna give you that copy of it.
And that's just my position.
I mean, do we want to go through and say if we agree or disagree with that, or what? I don't know.
I think we do have students that are identified as X in our system, so we do have more than just he and she and his and hers identified in our district.
Yeah.
And I understand how they identify, but I don't think our policies need to say we're going to accept every pronoun out there.
However, since these are put together by OSBA and they're totally, their approach is that he and she is, in favor of their or them, that, I understand that portion and I'm fine with using their or them.
And you'll see on most of these, there's not, they really take out the gender part of it, right? In acting in a professional manner instead of saying in there, or, they're just taking those pronouns out there in all of those places. Like I said, you're not adding or taking away by doing that. That's what I'm telling you. So if that's the stand we want to make, is to do that, but I would suggest, and especially this when they're not saying that, they're just taking out a pronoun, is to take those recommendations, but there will be places where you could say, no, we're going to stick with these two pronouns when pronouns are used.
Right. And I agree with it. It does not change the content at all. I just have a problem with making that change for the sake of making a change to recognize an agenda I don't agree with.
So,
I have a blue pen, so.
I mean, do we want to go across us and say whether we would like to keep that or,
Well, we could go through, and when we're going through it, like you see those things and say, hey, is this where we want to change those words, right? That's what this is before we adopt that policy. I mean, just a blanket stay wherever, I don't think that'd be appropriate, because there are some places that you might want to look at that. And so if you look at kind of the first one, right, is as a result of, instead of, I mean, they just took out his or her, just put status. Do you want to keep the recommendation or throw the recommendation out?
So to me, I am that broad
Yeah.
because of the purpose of which they're doing it. So to me, I say every place where it's crossed out his, her, and changes it to something else, I would keep it his, her.
As long as it doesn't
In everything.
change the substance that's in here, correct?
Right.
So are you, as a board, is that what you would like to, is that the only recommendation you have on IGBAB? Is to,
Yes.
anywhere with that is, we not
Yeah, I have no issue with
take the recommendation? Other than that, are you guys agree with that, or you guys, again, we can come to a vote, again, but,
I mean, we can state what we think, and then if it's something we need to vote on, or it's controversial, we can, I mean, I would vote with Dustin on this, so if you want to hear my opinion, so I would do.
I'm perfectly happy with using their or them. To me, it is more inclusive, and it doesn't change the meaning. So, and
Because then if we don't change whatever, we have different types now, then we need to include in everything. So I'll go with them and.
For me, I feel like, I guess the fact that this isn't really saying at the school level, the school's gonna have different options. So regardless of what this paper says, it's not gonna change the services we have. I really don't have a preference to what this document states, because the services that our students are receiving necessarily, I mean, isn't like you have to decide to be labeled this or that. You have to fit within this box. Like, that's not what the purpose of this is. So I'm okay either way. Leaving or changing, I'm okay.
Well, that seems about 50/50.
if you want to do the math, yes.
I really don't have a preference, so.
And I
Yeah,
will,
the concept's
the
not
other thing
changing
that
at
I
all,
will
so.
say is that, you know, someone else has gone through this and changed all that verbiage. And for us to go back through and change it back, it's gonna take a lot of,
That's kind of the point, is we say we don't like your agenda, and that's the reason you do it. As you say, your agenda, we're not for it, and we'd like to, this is a small statement of, we don't want that agenda. It doesn't
well,
make
I
that
don't
big.
think it's an agenda so much as it's, you know, they're doing this for the entire state, essentially. So, but, yeah, whether I agree or don't agree.
It's definitely an
Pronoun is
agenda.
pronoun.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I guess it kind of reminds me every, like, year the fifth graders take a trip to the coast and pronouns come up, and, I mean, how does Mrs. Adams, right, Kelsey? No.
Ms. Olson.
Olson.
Yeah.
Emily,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a totally different person. She always says, like, you know, well, the leaders will model it, but if the kids don't wanna do it, then they don't do it. But, I mean, I don't know, I really don't know that this changes anything.
It doesn't change the programs, it doesn't change
So not
the way
adopting
people are
it,
going to be addressed.
Yeah.
But the point is, with his and her is the way the policy was, that's the way it has been. They're specifically going in and asking us to change that. They know it doesn't change any of the programs, they know it doesn't change anything else. And yet they, in my opinion, have wasted their time and have wasted our time by going in and making a change to a document that didn't need to be changed. It's a bureaucrat who's taking it upon themselves to make a change statewide as part of their agenda. Yes, it's a little small tiny thing. I just don't like it when I consider it a waste of time, and again, I don't agree with that agenda.
Does it say required though?
We don't have to adopt every change they make.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Oh,
but
we just have to have
yeah,
it.
like
Got
most,
it.
what he's talking about, those, again, those don't change anything. There's
Right.
things that changes in there that we have to adopt, right?
Oh, okay.
Those little ones, right, just taking out his or her on the first one is not changing any of the law, it's not changing our policy, we're not now in a different compliance. If there's a law that comes out that says, if it's in there, then you're out of compliance, then yes, but this is not that.
Okay,
So-
so we do have to adopt this, but we get to change the,
Right, so for example,
Okay.
Maribel, and we'll see this later on here, one of the policies I don't love is that we have to have somebody from the equity committee on the budget committee. That's gonna be tough to get somebody who's willing to be on both committees. So I don't love that policy because that's hard, but it's mandated by statute. Yeah, it's mandated by statute, so you're not gonna hear me say, we're not doing that. We have to.
That's not true.
Right, it's not optional.
Yeah, remember when they said that they were gonna make that
okay.
less and everything, and we had to just change him and adopt it according with our district, because that's,
Yeah, and all I was like hung up on is the end of that says required.
higher.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are, yeah. So what I'm hearing is that, that the board, and this is, I was putting it out there, that, we accept the changes except for when striking out his or hers or changing that, and then other than that, we accept the policies on that. It was 50-50-ish, I don't know, I'm just trying to come up with a solution.
Right now it's 50-50.
Yeah.
This isn't here.
Well, I'm like, I see, the first three here, saying leave it with his and hers. Pat and Jasmine are saying no, and I don't count. I don't care.
It doesn't
It
change.
doesn't change anything.
I don't-
And that's kind of my part is to, that I know kind of the agenda is for being, looking at being more exclusive to include all of those students. Not saying we agree, we're not pushing any agenda, that just includes all of those students. And we're not changing that or saying that we will say we're gonna recognize it, it just includes everyone. So, especially in this IGB AP. It's not what, I mean, that's my opinion on it, like I said, that's part of your job, to set that policy and those things, and if that's, you know, like I said, the direction you wanna look at and go, we're good.
Any other comment?
Well, the fact that this just has to do with records makes it seem like it doesn't change if we keep his or hers. They're just records.
That's all we have policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what we could do.
Should I move on?
No, I gotta figure this out. This is coming up Monday, there's no move on yet. This is the final reading of it, so we gotta get this.
So
ready to go
on
with that.
Monday, you're gonna say, this is it. This
Yeah.
is the actual thing.
Yeah.
Vote
Vote on
it.
Vote on it.
And, I mean, and at that time, we could do it if you guys would like to. I mean, usually we do it in bulk, right? But at that time, if you wanna take some of these things out and as presented this way, and vote on it like that, then that's okay as well. And so saying that it's not always a unanimous vote, we do wanna say, hey, you know, I just don't agree with that, or, so, totally up to you, but we need to have something to present to you guys on Monday, so.
And in fairness, like Nick pointed out, Susie's not here.
Yeah.
We don't know what her position is. And so either way you present it to us, I mean, instead of doing it in both, we can vote one by one, or we can just pull this one out and say, we want it this way. So if you put something in front of us that has his and hers stricken from it, if I were to make a motion, I would say I'd vote to approve, take back Joe R. with his and her added back in. And if you present it to us with it removed, with them in there, then somebody else could present a motion that says, I want to approve it with that taken out and passed as OSBA, put it to us.
Yeah.
So something along those lines.
So I will put this one on the side, I will be submitting it to you guys with those changes in there. And in your motion, you can, so probably Dustin, you would give that motion is that you know, this one particularly, with all the changes except for this.
Right.
Or
And
you
then can
could-
vote on it.
You know, very simply, we could delete his slash her or he, she, or and their and them, and just put the students apostrophe.
Actually, the way it is though, I mean, it just takes out the pronouns completely, so
Yeah.
there isn't a replacement for those, so.
I would say.
Some of them do replace it with the
Yeah,
students.
a couple
Yeah.
of them
Yes.
are-
I mean, you know, I would
Yeah.
just, because that's what we're talking about, are the students.
Yeah, I think on the page, or page 4, there's one that changes his and her to their.
There's one here that says individual.
Yeah, other than that, it doesn't change what the pronouns used on that. That would be the only.
Well, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
to me, it just seems,
So I'm going to present this one as, if there's no other edits, as recommended, and then you, like I said, you guys can do with what you will. It probably will have to come down to a vote on that, and you can think about it a little bit. But so, that's how I'll be presenting that.
That's,
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, so IIA, I think is the next one I had. This one, this is confusing to me. Very first paragraph at the end, it says, and those materials should be inclusive of populations represented in a global society. So it's talking about the selection of instructional materials, right?
Yeah.
How do we, maybe I'm reading this wrong, tell me if I am, but how do we find curriculum that is inclusive of populations represented in a global society? How many countries are there? How many tribes within each country are there, indigenous populations, otherwise? Nothing is going to be inclusive of everybody in a global society.
So when we, especially core, right, is we have our state approved curriculum that we go with, that's one of their measures they look through, and we have a list. Like social studies, we don't have a lot, but that's part of what they look at when they're doing that. And so what we say is, we go through their approved list.
Right. So I just think it's poor wording. I think absolutely it could say something in there, and the other policies get some of this, but it could say, and that those materials shall not discriminate against anybody represented in a global society. That's great, get rid of discrimination. But to say it needs to be inclusive of a global society, I look at that and go, I think it's too broad for a policy.
Is that part in brackets?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and yeah,
So does that have to be included?
you don't, I mean, you don't have to, it's a bracket.
Yeah.
So,
I would scratch it, I just think it's too broad.
Mhm.
To me, it would open up somebody from, I'm not even gonna name a country or a place, because I don't want to.
so you're talking about just that last statement that's in the brackets?
Yeah, just those brackets, I just think it's too broad to actually, I don't think we can actually fulfill that requirement. Even if we select approved materials and we're gonna have lots of liability protection by doing that, when I see something that I go, we can't comply with that, why put it down as a policy?
global society, as we say, is more than geographical. Right? I mean, I think
It's everybody.
Yeah, and it's bracketed, and so,
Right.
I mean, I think, one thing we do is we want to ensure that we're not inclusive, right? We're adding different cultures and different things in there when we're looking at curriculum, right? But again, global is so much.
Right.
Say, well, what about this with this, and then, anyway, so we take the bracket out, if that's what you guys want. I do think that, that is something to look at. We want to be inclusive with our materials.
I did a case once that required an interpreter, so like a 3-hour trial turned into literally all day. And a question was asked, and the witness gave her statement. It was Peruvian. I don't remember the exact language, but I learned in that trial there's like 2 or 3 dozen dialects of that language. And the interpreter said, okay, I have to ask where she's from in Peru to determine the dialect so that I can give you the answer, because depending on her dialect, the answer is a 180 difference. Well, how can we be inclusive of 28 Peruvian dialects? You know, let alone the globe.
Yeah. And I mean, you go both sides of that, right? You look
Right.
at the far, like, oh, I mean, how do we do this? But also, we want to be mindful too.
Right.
And try.
Yeah, exactly. We do our best to represent everybody we can and to have curriculum and materials that don't discriminate against people. But it's easier to say we're not going to discriminate versus we're going to include everybody in the set.
I think that's different having like the Peruvian example you gave is right, saying, well, they all speak the same language, we're just not going to care. But
Right.
knowing that, hey, we're going to try to be inclusive and give that opportunity to change the whole context of what you're doing.
Right.
Right. But to just say, well, to that, Peruvian's Peruvian, we're not gonna think about everybody. Like that would be a disservice to the job that you're doing in that.
Sure.
In the court. So no, and it's a bracket, and it's okay to take the bracket out. But like I said, I mean, we still want to ensure that we're trying to get all of those things.
Right.
So would you recommend that we put a period after inclusive in that?
I'd be fine with that.
Like that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Because that, I mean, that should fulfill our,
Pretty good with that?
yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so the next two comments are on pages 3 and 4, and they just relate to the same thing. And I think I might have seen some of this in some of the not recommended policies. But, okay, so Senate Bill 1098 is what's discussed here for suitable materials. In that statute, it allows the board to create policy for unsuitable materials. And I didn't really see in this any language about how we're going to determine what materials are unsuitable. I mean, what's suitable in the high school library might not be suitable in the elementary library, right?
And I think we have an AR that looks at that material selection, right?
But I don't think that was in the recommended,
Correct.
was it?
Yeah. But there's a committee and everything.
Okay, so we're working on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I don't have any issue with this policy. I just want to make sure that we know there's a policy coming to establish guidelines for suitability of
Yeah.
materials.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because right now, it really is, especially because we look at supplemental, those things in libraries is the biggest kind of hot topic. Right now, it's kind of discretion of the librarian, and we want to make something a little more formal.
Right.
Say, hey, here are the things we want to look at, we incorporate this. So,
And I don't know what Oregon's stance on this. Idaho, there's been lawsuits all across Idaho about removal of certain items from libraries, but in Idaho, they can sue not only the school district, but the librarian individually. I personally disagree with that stance, but anyway, it's something we need to look at. But it's being worked on, so I'm happy. So IIAAR. That one, sorry, this one is being deleted.
Yeah.
Right?
that's the old AR.
Right, so do we have, but this policy was to challenge material. So if somebody says that material isn't appropriate, it gave a challenge procedure. Where's the challenge procedure to replace this?
We would just go through the complaint procedure on that point right now.
Okay.
And that's the only avenue, because I want to redo this and what that looks like. We would just go through the complaint.
Okay, so a parent comes in and says, this material is sexually explicit, and it's in the library for elementary school, for any school really, probably not appropriate for me. But, you know, at the elementary level, they come in and they have a complaint. This was the policy that we sent them to or complied with. Now we're just saying, make a
Complaint, and then we'll review it, and we'll go through that, and we'll go through the steps of KL.
Okay, all right, cool. As long as there's a process.
Because I was going to ask you that same question, how we were going to replace this one.
Right. So IKF, graduation requirements. I don't have any issue with anything specifically in here, but the question that came up for me as I was looking through it is, how much of this is state mandated requirements and how many of these are district requirements? Is there a way to delineate which is which?
Yes, so if you look at the diploma requirements or the credits, is that what is that specifically? So these are state requirements on number 4 and 5 and 6.
Again, which ones are state requirements?
4, 5, and 6. Those are all, those are the 2 new requirements going in, one on the half credit for financial literacy and the other one on college and career pathway, or career exploration as they call it, so.
So like 1 credit physical education is not a state requirement.
Oh, those are just, no, just the edits or the change. Everything in here are the basic requirements of the state.
So most of these are state requirements.
All of these ones are.
Okay, not
Under diploma.
not district.
Not district. These are all state mandated ones.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question.
In that same policy, I did have a question on page 510, essential skills at the bottom. It says the district, and in brackets will, and then again in brackets will not. So I take it that that means our district needs to make a choice as to whether it's will or will not.
Yeah, and my recommendation that we will allow that.
Okay, we didn't
Yeah,
make
sorry, that
a
was-
decision
yes.
there.
Social skills?
Because it says will or will not.
It is, you said will.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
that's fine.
Okay, and on the next page, again, under essential skills appeal, the district will, in brackets, establish an appeal process. And the other one is, in brackets, follow board policy, whichever, not gonna read the whole thing. So, which is it?
Board policy, that complaint policy is a really blanket one. It lays out pretty clearly the steps we want our
Okay, so
students, our
we need
parents, and
to
community to
follow
take.
the board
Yeah.
policy and delete, or
Yeah.
not use that established
Yeah.
appeal process. And then, in that same policy, on page 910, I have a question about the second to last paragraph. The district will issue high school diploma to a veteran if the veteran resides in the boundaries, etc., and attended a high school of the district or to a deceased veteran. Okay, I understand what that all is stating, but when it says a veteran, that, a living veteran, it doesn't say that a 20-year-old veteran who's been in high school or who attended a high school for 6 months in the state of Oregon should be allowed to have a high school diploma. So I'm just saying perhaps that will could be changed to may.
I don't know much, I don't know the ins and outs of this law. I don't think that's a choice on ours. And
It
so
says will.
I couldn't give you, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know enough of the ORS to say, like,
And I
I know
understand.
you'd like to,
this.
but I think it's a requirement that if a veteran did reside within those boundaries, like, that's something we will have to do.
Well, I'm
So
just,
I don't know.
I'm just asking, I can understand the deceased portion, but, if that, if it's a 22-year-old who attended our high school for 6 months and then dropped out and, became, joined the military and became a veteran, can he just apply for, say, I want a diploma and you're going to give him we're going to give him a high school diploma? Is it a modified, a general, a full diploma? This is just a question, I'm just raising it because that kind of.
Can we pull up the statute?
I have my computer on here.
It's doing.
Yeah, again, I don't know enough on that exact law. I mean,
Right.
It's always been in our policy under there, so.
Oh, I
I have it pulled up.
Well, I can
issue a high school diploma to a person if they attended the high school before serving in the armed forces or was discharged or released under honorable conditions from the armed service. So, saying we will.
Kind of. So that there are actually some requirements in here that I'm surprised aren't built into this. So they had to have attended high school before serving in the armed forces. They had to have been discharged or released honorably, served in the armed forces as described in subsection 4, which means they were in World War I, which I don't think there's any survivors anymore. World War II, we're down to just a few in the country. Korean conflict, again, not very many left in the Vietnam War, which we've got a lot left. So it does seem like we need to put something in there.
Well, you have served in the armed forces of the United States and was physically present in Grenada, Panama, Persian Gulf War, Somalia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. That'd be, those are pretty recent.
Yeah, right, yep. So there's a bunch more. So I think that we need to have some sort of language in here that does say, so long as they comply with the statute. And I don't know why they crossed out ORS 332.
Yeah, and that's what the statute says, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
That's why'd they take out pursuant
Yeah.
to that Oregon law, because then that would all explain it right there.
right, so sometimes you see those things taken out because statute numbers change.
Yeah.
And I see if you create the policy and then return to the policy 10 years from now, and that's not a statute any longer. And so what we would generally put language in would say pursuant to Oregon law, ORS 332.114, or subsequent replacement statutes, or other relevant statutes. So usually there's some language like that, but I don't want us to be in a situation where somebody looks at this policy and says, oh yeah, we need to give this veteran a diploma, but they may not have qualified under the statute.
Actually, it's put pursuant to the Oregon law.
Yeah,
Leave ORS up.
yeah, pursuant to applicable Oregon or federal law. Yeah. Cause I don't know if this is a standalone statute or if it's part of a federal,
Yeah, it looks like.
bigger federal issue.
And then, because if you look at, that was done in Brunswick.
Pursuant to some federal.
Makes me wonder why OSBA would cross that out.
Because they want to be more exclusive, guys, all veterans.
Yes. They're overstepping.
I feel really creative what
Crystal
veteran
like that
we need here.
Well, I was just really concerned because that statute was crossed out.
All right, do you think they crossed it out because who knows what other wars are gonna be in there that aren't listed that we might?
But even if you just take out the ORS though, you could still say Oregon law,
Right.
That's what I was
right? And they took out the whole word pursuant
Yeah.
to Oregon law rather than just the ORS. But even if they do change that, the ORS would have to go, you know.
I'm just saying if there's
Well,
a,
sometimes it's just renumbered though.
Yeah.
Right.
There are statutes that you look at them, and the statute is still there, and then it says renumbered, and then you have to find a new number.
Yeah.
It's frustrating that that happens, but it does.
So you want to do May?
Well, I think we just say the district will issue a high school diploma, so long as, how do you word that? Pursuant to, I think I would put a qualifier in there, so long as the veteran qualifies under Oregon law. So to the extent a veteran qualifies under Oregon law, the district will issue a high school diploma to a veteran if, and then I'll put the rest of it, I think I just put it at the very beginning of that policy, put a qualifier there.
Can you just list it, like, put like a number 1 or something and list it down below, right where it says legal reference, and then put on there?
Good?
So just Justin, at the bottom of the ORS, it says, note 332.114, issuance of diplomas to veterans was enacted into law by the Legislative Assembly, but was not added to or made part of ORS Chapter 332 or any series therein by legislative action. So do you think that's why they took that out?
And see, the issue is this is saying
I
that
don't
we
know.
will, as long as you attend school here for a day, that we will issue a diploma to you. Even if you meet any of these requirements, it doesn't matter, right? That's what the new policies are trying to say is written, correct?
That
Yeah.
was how I interpreted it.
Yeah, so they're taking that whole thing out then and then just saying, if you're a veteran and you come in and you say,
I want my diploma,
yep.
so.
You better get a rubber stamp.
Anybody else need one? I'm signing over now.
Oh, sorry.
Boy, that's really strange, because they've got it listed as an ORS as part of 332, and it says
But
it's
it
not
says
part of
it's not,
332.
right?
I don't, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Perhaps we should ask for a clarification from OSBA legal on that.
Yes. So now I have 3 separate files.
Listen,
Yes, I
we
will-
need
I
you
will-
to work extra hard.
Yes, that's fine. But we're gonna
We
get
work
it done on
Saturdays
Monday.
too.
Just a heads up, we're gonna get done on Monday, so.
Nice hatchback.
Yeah.
See, I did read them.
Okay, next one.
So JFCEB. I'm going to guess. Well, so on page 2, I just have a note here, why delete the steps? So steps 1, 2, and 3 are taken out. So first instance, second instance, third instance.
Which one are you?
Sorry, JFCEB,
Jake?
Oh,
Yeah.
personal electronic devices.
Yeah.
We've already adopted that.
Yeah,
Yeah, like that one's done.
yeah, that was
Too late.
we done in October.
What are you trying?
Remember we had to do that, we had to do that
Well,
one.
no,
by-
I remember we adopted it, but did we adopt it with these steps deleted?
Which,
Those might be old.
let me see.
Yeah. we
Well,
did
it's-
some
it
There
was-
was some modifications that they made at the end. You handed it out.
Hey, it was still in Google Docs, Google Drive, okay? As recommended.
I just know you handed out the last one that was
Right.
different.
Yeah. Right, but does it match what we adopted in October?
Sure.
Okay. All right, for some reason I
Yeah,
thought
we've
those
had these
steps
since
were
October,
separate.
and I think we've gone through. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to see what's on the website? What's
More than
adopted?
Oh, no, so this was off of just what's in Google Drive,
Yeah.
is what I printed this from this morning.
Do you want to know if the steps are on that you were talking about?
Okay, what part of that?
Yeah, so page 2,
Okay.
there's students in violation of the policy, and then it gives steps 1, 2, and 3 of here's what's going to happen for the first infraction,
Yeah,
second.
we don't have any steps.
No. Uh-uh.
Okay, steps.
Okay, so we adopted it with no steps in October.
Correct.
Okay, forget it then. I thought we adopted it with, and then when I pulled it up this morning, it had them in there.
Yeah, we did without it just to get the leeway of the admin, right? There's sometimes we might, okay, hey,
That makes sense.
in about a month, we want to give you another one, or the other way is fractions and top of fractions and everything, so it makes sense.
Okay, so then, maybe I can just forget all about JFCEB 1 and 2 then, 'cause that was the first version, right? Yeah, we've already discussed it, I'll forget about it.
JHCA is the next one.
JHCA?
Okay, that's the next one, is that the next one you guys have?
Yep.
Yeah, but they didn't propose on that.
So the school sports participation, grades 7 through 12 are required to submit an appropriate school sports pre-participation examination. and then it gives a link for the required form. But on OSAA's website, it's not called a school sports pre-participation examination unless you click on the document. So the link itself is called a physical examination form, parentheses R 2023, and then when you click on that link, then it calls it a school sports pre-participation examination. But if you don't know what you're looking for, because when you go to that link, when you go to governance forms, that's not what it's called. So that's just kind of a, do we need to have something in there that says the physical examination form R 2023 so people know what to click on or what to, most people are gonna get it from the office. But if somebody's looking at this going, I need the sports pre-participation examination, it's not an option.
Most of the physicians have it printed for you when you show up.
I think it is, if OSA, like you click on it, it says, you know, pre-examination form, but if a form says sports pre, right, it might be an OSAA thing. I mean, we'll shove in two things. One, you have too much time on your hands for Thanksgiving. It could just be an oversight by OSBA or OSAA, and so,
Click on the link, it just goes to.
yeah, and then so I can just email them and say, hey,
Okay.
these two don't jive.
Right.
And are we calling it this or this? And then that way they can match. And so-
Perfect.
And JLA is the next one.
Yeah. On JLA, first paragraph, it just says information may, well, end of the first paragraph says information may be released through appropriate procedures. Where are those procedures?
The, what's it called, the public,
Like a FOIA?
it's not free appropriate, but it's, what is the procedure we use to get this information? You know, records requests, right?
Oh.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, the records requests, and that, and unless it's by military branch or something of that nature, and then they go through.
Okay, so we do have a policy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's was my only question is, are those procedures set or is that something coming later?
Those are set.
Okay, that's it for me.
I read through them, but obviously not that much detail. Not testimony to them.
That's what we have in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other comments, questions? Thank you, Dustin. Sharing off.
Well, thank you.
We'll now move on to the SIA budget review.
Okay, so in front of you is the SIA grant agreement. And this is standard, we've done it every year on it. It's just we have to have it on Monday, we just have to leave it open for public comment. Not even a vote that needs to go with it, just it has to be open for public comment. And so I wanted to show that to you guys if you have any questions on it, but really, I mean, that's what it is. Here's your agreement we're signing for SIA. So, pretty standard.
I just make note that the grant agreement is for the biennium, so
Yeah.
it's for 2 years, not 1 year.
Okay.
Starting July 1 of 25.
And
Six, 30, 27.
this is what the state says, you will sign this.
If we don't sign it, then we
You
won't
don't
get
get
our
money.
money, yeah.
It's a budget law, right?
Yeah.
Do you have questions on that? So we like money.
Yeah, exactly. And this goes with that budget that I presented to you guys in October? Yeah. We went through the whole SIA, HSA, went through all those people, and so that basically, that's how we're gonna spend it. They said, sign it if you want that money, so.
Okay, any other questions on that? Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns? Is there anything coming up at our regular meeting that we need to?
No, I have one more item for the end of the meeting, but if you guys have something you want to discuss before the end of the meeting, totally.
That's what I was asking.
Yes.
Okay. You have the floor, Ryan.
Perfect, thank you. I would like to make sure birthday
gosh.
that is right now. We do have some cupcakes for her birthday, and say happy birthday, thank you for being here on your birthday. It's not only her birthday, but it's Blue and White Night for wrestling, and she's here with us, and so, I was gonna say we should sing happy birthday, but we're on camera, so I don't wanna do that. But what we're gonna do is, we do have some cupcakes and say thank you and happy birthday.
Happy 25th.
Thank you.
25.
Yeah,
We don't wanna know we don't wanna know numbers, we don't ask
I
that.
say 25th.
Yeah, I think your contract says you have to solo sing happy birthday.
Oh, gosh.
done.